likes of a Dark, for instance, in the quarterfinals, or parting, you know. Obviously, the players are always going to be stacked, and it won't be easy for anyone who makes it out of any group, but finishing first definitely gives you a little advantage. In the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of our Korean Protoss. It is Trap.
In the top left-hand corner of the map, we have got our blue Zerg from NC Sports. It is Serral.
As we have no 12 pools or cannon rushing happening over here, we can talk a little bit about some of the things that happened in the previous days. We know this is a very long event, but you guys want to make damn sure to tune in tomorrow and Sunday, because I think the playoffs are going to be stacked. They are going to be awesome. We know that in the first day we had Parting in Hero Marine Advance, Parting in first seed, Hero Marine in second, which means that if you win Group D, there is a chance you play against the biggest of Gapes. On the second day we had...
Bunny and Clem.
Yeah, the two Terrans. Bunny advancing in first. Yeah. And then obviously yesterday we saw Dark and Time advance. So that's our play of group so far. 6 out of 8. We're going to add 2 more players to that lovely list. And I guess at the end of the day, we'll actually see the bracket too. We always reveal that immediately as soon as the final group is done.
Yeah.
A little bit afterwards.
That'd be fun.
I'm super excited to see.
Yeah, I should be, I mean, honestly, so far I feel like everyone's just setting us up for having like an amazing bracket where like every single series should just be really good, which is kind of what we had last season as well. Like every match we were kind of excited for, we're hyped for, and that's always a good way for things to go down when it comes to the playoffs, of course, as we get ourselves into PvZ mode with really not a lot to update you all on so far in this game. But it is very much so a case of waiting for that cyber core.
For a long time, a lot of people would say Trap is weak against Queen Walks. Would you agree with this statement, White?
Not any weaker than anybody else. No. I actually think his micro is so good he can get himself out of trouble even when his static defense is late. So, no, I wouldn't say he's weak against the Queen Walks.
All right.
I do think a couple players had very good analysis, like Lambo, had a really good idea of what builds he could play and identifying those builds, and were really good at Queen Walking and punishing him for those. But there's also been countless players who have Queen Walk Trap and he just, bats it to the side, so...
Well, it is light shade, and it is something that we see very often. We, of course, saw Serral do it earlier as well against Zone, and even though that game didn't go his way, I do think if you resume that from replay right before that first Immortal comes out, and you just pick off those 2 very exposed pylons in the front with all those Ravagers, the Queens that were still in range, a couple of Zerglings that were coming through, I actually do think that Serral just walks away with that game, and I think he wins it right there and then.
Oh no, absolutely. I was standing up ready to go downstairs, right? We were on our way to the desk and we were like, wait, the pylon's not dead? The pylon's not dead? And then Fear Dragon said, sit back down, boys.
I mean, it wasn't just that there were 2 pylons that were exposed. They were both so low in HP already. Like, they actually would have died in 0.1 second. There was no battery overcharge to save those either at that point. Anyways, that is in the past. We'll see how Trap decides to play this one out. I feel like the Korean Protosses are always very good in, like, we're just kind of watching, we're chatting, we're keeping a close eye on the minimap, and then suddenly they've got 2 adepts in a very annoying spot, and they randomly shade into a mineral line. And it's something that Rainer has been vocal about it too. He's like, I don't know where they come from, but they always find weird angles that somehow they were in my dead corner and I didn't see them. My overlords didn't see them. 2 adepts. If you ignore them for 3 or 4 seconds, you're going to lose a handful of drones.
This is going to be a nice pickoff, though, as Serral is going to be able to get a wrap around, and those adepts will start to fall quick. The other adept kind of got away into a mineral line, which is a tiny bit more annoying, but it will still end up going down.
Yep. Obviously not a great start there. Just when I complimented the Korean Protosses about... what I like that Zest does, sometimes he just puts them in the top side of the map. Like literally at 12 o'clock, that base there, the potential 4th base of Serral. Even though normally that would be a 5th, but earlier it was his 4th. Now we don't have these adepts at home, which means we lose a little bit of DPS, but a Void Ray with an Oracle nearby is going to keep this Nexus safe. I guess Serral did catch a glimpse of that Oracle, correct?
I would say so. I don't think he pulled it back in time for it not to be seen at all. That first battery in the mineral line of that 3rd is very defensive, right? It's like very far back, because a lot of the time you'll see that battery maybe a bit further forward and like setting up like a bit of a choke point for the units to sit in, but I guess if you don't have the adepts up, put it in the mineral line, keep it back, and you've got a battery for later.
Do you think with how reckless Trap was with his first 2 adepts and he just kind of lost them for nothing, do you think it's pretty obvious for Yona that he's going to go up against the double Stargate build here?
Yeah, I would say so. What else do you really expect, right? If the adepts have gone down like that, there's no other real follow-up that makes a lot of sense unless we see something really out of left field, like super fast, like Blink +1, which can happen, but really is a rarity.
Oracle drops a Revelation and actually activates Pulsar Beam too to pick off a couple of creep tumors. This is something that really was not possible a while ago. It would all take too much energy, but no, since a Revelation doesn't last as long, it only costs 25 energy. Actually kind of nice. It still always feels a little bit weird to me. I'm like, is it worth it? But actually in this phase in the game, I would say yes, it is absolutely worth it. Because a single Oracle will simply not kill any drones anymore. There's too much map vision for Serral. He will have too much time to get any of the queens that he has in the correct spot. So I kind of like the idea of just dropping a Revelation and pushing the creep back a little bit.
Better get something than nothing, as we are going to see the Twilight and the +1 coming through. So not going to see any kind of robo setup. Not going to move into disruptors. So Trap playing one of the more aggressive on the map than playing defensive, right? He's not going to sit back and, you know, use those disruptors defensively. You'll have other units to use and maybe a faster charge to get, you know, harassment on the map with as well. So some cool potential there, something that is a bit different from the norm at the moment.
Actually, a little bit surprised that Serral takes this base again at the top side. Normally you see it as a 5th, but you see it as your default 4th base. I guess it is kind of nice to keep your main base safe later on against potential Void Ray flybys or a War Prism, but a little bit odd.
Yeah, a little bit interesting. I feel like we've started to see it a little bit more, but don't really have any particular reason why as we go for the Infestation Pit. Now the Spire starts as well. We'll see exactly what the plan is here from Serral. It's one of those scenarios where Serral has played a lot of tricky things as of late. You know, he loved to like fake Hive and then make mutas and stuff, as we are going to see RoboBay and 2 more Robo facilities. And this time Hive actually will come up as well, so let's see what all of these guys want to do. I feel like everything's a little bit out of order from what I would have initially guessed at.
I feel like we're playing tech bingo over here. Like Templar, bingo! It's like, the only thing we're missing is the Fleet Beacon. He's like, oh, you know, he's opening Pokemon cards. He's like, can I please get a Fleet Beacon? That's the only thing I need. You look at the production, it's like, he's getting everything. Don't forget that he already started off with double Stargate. Has those +1 air weapons already. Now we have a Forge. We have a lot of gateways finishing up. You've got a RoboBay. You've got a Templar Archives. Legitimately, the only thing we are actually missing is a Fleet Beacon, which he could maybe drop once he's got 4 bases up and running.
Yeah, it's genuinely one of those things that's not too far in the future, right? It's something you will probably need once Serral starts teching up heavily, which is exactly what he's doing. Spire is done. There's a little bit of gas in the bank, but I do expect this just to be moving into that Hive, maybe starting up a greater Spire, and otherwise just happy to engage into the later game.
I almost feel that Trap is not totally sure what he wants to make. He is going to lose that one Oracle. It's a bit sloppy. You don't really want to lose it like that. It's still always nice to have an Oracle. You can just spam stasis traps on your side of the map for a little bit of vision, and potentially, if you're ever out of position, it could buy some time. Just drop a couple of Revelations on the army. It's a little bit silly to lose it like that, but Trap has been hovering around 122 supply, and he's like, I'll make a War Prism. I'll make a couple of Disruptors. I've got +2 on the way. We're going to make another Stargate. You already have 2 made. Don't forget about it. I feel like this is the kind of Stargate that you normally make when you wanted to finish up, then you build a Fleet Beacon, and then you build another Stargate. Yeah. He has 2 Stargates. I'm sure he knows that. Because he's got a lot of Void Rays. It's not like he completely forgot about the fact that he's got 7 Void Rays on the map.
Unless he's just going to keep making Stargates, but even that, I'd like to see a Fleet Beacon. Yeah, not sure about that exactly, as we are getting into those later game tech units from Serral. The Viper's up now. Obviously, has a few Corruptors on the way as well.
I hope for Trap that he's got a lot of cannons, because I feel like at this point he has spent so much money on everything other than making a terrifying army. I look at his army body, and I'm not very impressed by this army. Like, it gets better over time. We've got a lot of gateways, of course, but he doesn't have Blink as far as I know, so the only thing he can really warp in that makes his army more powerful are Zealots. By the time I see a Great Aspire finishing up, Zealots don't make the difference. Now that one Stargate finished up, by the way, and he's like, no, I can build a Fleet Beacon. I'm like, mate, you already had 2 Stargates out.
A little bit mentally out of sync there. I'm intrigued by, are you intrigued by this one Immortal that just got built too? That feels like, it's like the time in the game where you usually see people like, oh, I had Immortals earlier, let's sacrifice them.
Like, this reminds me a little bit of how Stats used to play a long time ago, where it's like, I'm just going to get all the bases, I'm going to get a lot of static defense, then he had a little bit of an army here, a little bit of an army there, and he's like, I'm just going to survive, and eventually I'll get a terrifying army. But Trap, even though he has a Templar Archives, I don't think he has ever researched Storm, and I'm still just not impressed. No, look at his upgrades. I'm surprised with how little he has, other than a ridiculous amount of production facilities.
And I mean, I guess for now it will somewhat work out, because at least Serral's not attacking, but it feels like if Serral had pulled the trigger on an attack in the last 3 minutes, Trap has at no point really been prepared, but of course Serral's had grander plans for exactly where he wants to end up. First Broodlords are coming through right now, and at this point we're going to have Ling Roach just trying to trade out so he can improve his army even further.
And Serral's probably a little bit confused. Weren't you supposed to like ever attack me? Maybe with a couple of Archons, couple of Zealots, put those Void Rays to use. Trap is like, nope, I'm actually perfectly fine with where I'm at. I've got 3 Stargates up and running now, plus 2 air weapons have been fired up. That is nice. Eventually Trap's army is obviously going to be where you kind of want it to be. Would you like to see Storm?
Yeah, I would love to see Storm already. I predicted Trap in this series, so I would take Storm with open arms. It's missing, and the models are still building. I can't put 2 and 2 together on this one, apparently.
I have a hard time believing that you can ever win this without feedbacks. Like, you're gonna have to have High Templars. Like, if Serral looks at his army, he'd be like, I can technically make 5 Vipers, and I can just abduct all the key units one by one. This is the kind of army that Trap has right now. That will do fine in most scenarios, as we do see Storm queued up. If there is like 1 Viper, maybe 2 Viper. If Serral would have 5 Vipers right now, there wouldn't even be a fight. Trap would just get picked apart, he would lose every single unit, and he won't stand a chance. But the longer this goes on, obviously the bigger the chance is for Archery and Protoss to maybe add a couple of those units and get ready for it.
In a way, maybe Trap just plays into the idea. He just thinks Serral is just going to play for that very late game and set up into all the things himself, which in fairness, Serral has kind of done.
Yeah.
You know, that Ultralisk Cavern is finishing now. We've seen those Ultras be very useful in the later stages of a game in PvZ lately as well, so yeah, Serral is honestly just getting all of his own options set up too, trading out a few of the lower tech units, bringing in more Corruptors. Here comes a bit of Prism harassment. Serral's on top of it immediately, though. If nothing else, at least Trap gets a bit of a scout, sees the Ultra Cavern, etc., but it's all things he should be expecting at this stage anyway.
It really does feel like we're just gearing up for this one very, very big fight. Because neither of them is particularly rich. Like, we are maxed out and we may start building a little bit of a bank at this point, but the armies that both players are making are going to be way more expensive than what they will have in the bank by the time they fight. At least I hope so. Otherwise, we won't have to fight for a very long time. I just kind of feel like it comes down to one big engagement in the near future.
Yeah.
Taking a look at the spellcasters, we've got 2 Vipers on the map at this point. No Infestors yet either.
Yeah, first one just popped out. Maybe was looking to keep up with Pasturing Glands as we get rid of an Archon down here. It's a little bit annoying against Serral's at this stage with this Roach Ravager force. It's not too upsetting if he loses a couple of those units. Obviously, would be making space perhaps for more of those Infestors, or at this stage, another Viper or so might not be too far amiss either. Looks as though he's actually just focusing on bringing the Ultras into play.
I have the feeling that this is kind of when Trap maybe wants to fight, as +2 air weapons is done. He's got his first few carriers out. He's got a Warp Prism with the army too. Does make 7 more cannons. Now, obviously, if you don't need to fight on creep, you don't really want to do it. A couple of Zealots on the top side are not going to accomplish a whole lot. Obviously, this has been a relatively slow game, and that means that Serral has plenty of vision and plenty of static defenses everywhere.
Yeah, the creep threat is obviously fantastic. It gives him a good warning about any attack everywhere. Unless he managed to maybe sneak the mothership around the side and go for an aggressive recall. As we're going to see a bit more static defense on the left, and well, Trap just keeping on expanding too. That's another thing to mention, is that Serral's never really done anything to stop Trap from, you know, having a decent economy. In this case, he's going to show up and get rid of this, you know, attempted 6th base, but attempted 6th base, you know, he got to 5 bases fairly free.
Yep. I mean, same can be said, of course, with Serral.
Yeah.
Who had a high drone count at one point. Now, actually, he lost quite a few drones because he's been building a lot of Spine Crawlers and Spore Crawlers. I don't hate the idea of just sitting around 75. There are many games where you'd like to have a few more as a Zerg. But at this point, it's going to be important that once these armies clash, it's at least a somewhat close fight. Because if Trap just completely steamrolls the army of Serral, because Serral's got 100 drones, and you're gonna have a hard time actually recovering. So I don't hate the idea of kind of capping yourself at 75 in games like this.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of down with that as well. See, obviously, Tempest are coming through as well, aiding this later game army. Do you at any point get worried for Serral as Trap gets onto the later and later game army, or are we just feeling good that Serral can control this?
I'm feeling pretty good about Serral, and I think that he feels very good about his ability to use the Vipers, Corruptors, Ground Army, and Infestors at the same time. We've seen him slip up here and there, and obviously that game against Max Packs in Game 3 of the Aces RG qualifiers, which happens next week, by the way, jumps to mind. But this is like a little thing. It's like, alright, he left his Vipers way too exposed. He lost them before the fight even started, and that was a bit silly. More often than not, I feel like Serral is second to none when it comes to controlling these ultra late game Zerg armies.
Yep, no, makes sense. Did you see how Brutes is going to come through the top side, and Observer does spy them a little bit as the Void Rays come down, picking off no blood.
I gotta say, Wardy, you've been blessed with the absolute bangers so far this week, haven't you?
Yeah, you know, it's all the ones where you sit back for 20 minutes, you wait, and either you sit back for 20 minutes or the series is done in 20 minutes, recall home.
Yeah. Seems like we are going to kick things off here finally as +3 melee is done. We've got air armor on the way. And obviously means that carries and void rays have +3. I think that it's the calm before the storm is over. And I think all hell is about to break loose. We do have that mothership in a rather feisty spot in the top side. I always feel like these moves are a little bit hit or miss. Serral just kind of walked an infested full on energy there into the army of Trap. Can't do that too many times. Some sick purification novas. Some great feedbacks as well. These queens somehow still alive, but that was a lot of damage and a lot of energy drained.
I know, that's a ton of damage on the queens. Obviously, they still have some energy. Transfusions will continue as we storm to keep them back. We will kill the bottom left base. We still have that mothership up right.
Yeah. And we are going to recall towards the top side. Very cool move here. A couple of Corruptors will not stand a chance. I gotta love the way the Trap's playing so far. Broodlords are very good against ground armies. They're also very, very slow.
Yep, it's going to take a long time to rotate back up here, even though Serral got a little bit of a heads up. He saw the mothership ahead of time. Now Zealots are going to hit the bottom left, stop this base from mining. We do have a Disruptor being chased away in the center.
That Disruptor actually casually walked into the main Zerg army that was on movement. Like, whoa, wrong neighborhood. I'm out of here. Serral is going to clean up these Zealots, not before losing that hatchery though. I don't think Serral is too happy with how the last minute and a half went, right? Felt like he lost a lot of units, lost some bases, lost a couple of queens there. Well, I think Trap had a pretty good time. He's like, oh, look at me, I can do this all day. Drop a couple Novas, drop a couple Storms, recall the army towards the top. Serral wants to strike back. Do we have an Overseer? Yes, we do. But these Dark Templars are not going to be enough.
Yeah, when I was casting Trap against Lambo last week or so, it was a very much so a case that Trap really played some, just at some points there was just some really, really good fights that just completely spun the game around on the spot. And it was on these kind of armies, and that's why I'm just a little bit cautious for Serral, because I know Trap has that ability to maybe, do what he just did there, right? And if that happens one too many times, suddenly Serral is maybe in a position he can't quite recover from, or if it goes a bit worse for Serral. So a slight reason to be concerned, but of course Serral otherwise should still be feeling comfortable. He wanted to end up here after all.
Yeah, no, both players basically looked at each other and it's like, you want to do this? You want to do the late game? Because I'm not going to attack you. And then Serral says, fine, I'm definitely not attacking you either. So Trap's army definitely looks solid at this point. We have a couple of Immortals in the bottom side of the map going from joining this hatchery just finished up. And I think it's going to get picked off immediately again. I gotta say, I like how mobile Trap is playing. It feels very dynamic, and this is not the kind of game you want to be playing if your main strength are all those Broodlords, because Broodlords are just too damn slow.
Yep, going from the bottom to the top is the real killer, right? And that means you just can't keep bases up, or external bases up, the extra bases that you really need. Whereas Trap, he's attempting to take his last, well, he's got his last base of the game essentially up and running. Obviously, we're in a position where you still need it. As this is really bad. As Trap is caught in a corner, Fungals and Parasitic Bombs goes off. Instant recall out, but that does take away some of his aggressive options, right? Because now he's one recall down.
And one carrier does die actually to that Parasitic Bomb. A lot of the Void Rays have taken permanent damage too. That's something to keep in mind. That means that if eventually Serral gets another wombo combo of Parasitic Bomb and Fungal off, there's a good chance these Void Rays die very quickly. They'll also die if they just casually fly into 7 or 8 Spore Crawlers. Trap being a little bit reckless here. Maybe it's not the worst thing. Obviously, we have money in the bank. Fire forward a couple of Novas. Take out some of the static defenses. That, I gotta say though, that did kind of scare me, because that wasn't even a fight. That was clearly, Trap, you need to get out of here immediately. It wasn't his entire army, I guess, but it didn't look good.
No, if that fight goes down, I think Trap ends up 40-50 supply down at least, and Serral just starts marching with the Broodlords. Another recall as we go to the bottom side of the map, this time with the Mothership and all of the units. So we're going to push down here. The Broods are in the top, of course. The Corruptors are on their way. He is at least going to force back some of the stack defense to begin with. These Corruptors don't really want to go in on their own, and the Vipers, they are going to come back.
There's only 2 High Templars on the map. Isn't it kind of crazy to be here this deep on creep, but only 2 High Templars? The Mothership does get abducted, and it does get picked off immediately. I'm not feeling this for Trap, man. He's got 160 supply. Sure, you've got carriers here, but this army needs to go home, man, because it's really not that powerful. And there is, I believe, 1 feedback left.
I think he's been very fortunate that the spellcasters from Serral didn't take another step forward after being pushed back initially, because if they had, that's an army that's taken a lot of damage, of course, and that obviously wouldn't have been pretty. In a game where now your recall's on cooldown, the Mothership was gone, you were stuck there. That army has to walk home. Serral will counterattack for 1 more base kill, and Trap is going to escape through the bottom side of the map as he's sending DTs forward to harass, and immediately those spores are going to try and retreat.
Well, that's kind of nice. Obviously, Dark Templars have a lot of DPS, especially with +3, and they've got Shadow Stride too now. One more Infested did randomly get picked off there. I think Trap can be very fortunate all those units made it out, because being on creep, that deep into creep with only a single... Oh well, he had 2 High Templars to be totally fair. Felt very, very risky to me.
I'm with you, man. I mean, missing so much utility that's usually essential, as we do see once again an attempt to deny the bottom left-hand base. I mean, we're just not being allowed to keep this up. These are 2 bases which Serral has not properly got a hold of. And while Trap, okay, he's only really mining from one of the 2 on the top right-hand side, they are at least up and he's somewhat holding those positions. So that's something to keep in mind, that at some point Serral needs to make a switch to make sure he can actually get these bases up.
Their banks are pretty much big enough now to replace the entire army that they have. The armies that they are currently working with are around 13,000 resources. Serral's army just got even a little bit more expensive. A couple of Dark Templars are going to get picked off. That was, what was that?
So I thought, initially I was like, oh yeah, maybe he can like blink on top of the Infestors, insta-kill them.
Yeah.
Then he was like, look at the way he's just going to run on top of them, right? And then he just blinked behind them and gets fungled into the Broodlords. And that was a lot of DTs, obviously, 3 Archons more. So a sizable chunk of units going down. Kind of a funny moment as we do see Carrier Tempest looking to push the Ultras back on the bottom side. Once again, contesting a base that Serral wants to take as Trap is trying to long-distance mine it.
Still only 2 High Templars on the map. That's obviously for the feedback. Now, you always got to be a little bit careful with Storm. I don't know if it was Zest actually, I think in one of the interviews we had online, where he basically said like, oh, you don't want to storm too much with your carriers because you can take the risk of killing your interceptors. This is a very funny fight. These Immortals somehow kill 1 Ultra. They might get a second one, even though all the barriers have been popped already. And he actually saves 2 of them as the Void Rays are going to push these Ultras back. That's honestly a pretty sick move here by Trap. Yeah, the TLDR is that Storm also does friendly fire, of course. And when you just A-move with carriers, there's a good chance you're going to damage a lot of your interceptors as these Infestors!
No!
Yona not paying attention, losing multiple of his spellcasters. Yeah, that's painful.
That's really expensive. Now you're going to lose this bottom left base again. Denied once more on this bottom side. As at the same time, you've got Void Ray showing up to deny the top side. And okay, this base doesn't have a lot left on it. We're now going to see the units coming in. An instant recall out. They only kill 1 Void Ray, but nice that you're still just moving the aggression around. You've got Zealots in the center too, and Trap continues to trade fairly okay.
Yep, obviously he did lose a few resources more in this game. That's mostly because of the Dark Templar run by Zealot, is very pricey. And we've lost a couple of Void Rays here and there. A carrier went down. None of it is game ending so far, as we do have a fungal. 3 more Infestors go down, but we do land a nice fungal and we land a couple of abducts on these carriers. And these are obviously very expensive units. Takes a long time to replace them. The High Templars on the low ground are in a bit of trouble too against the Broodlings from those Broodlords. And Trap has just lost 40 supply in what felt like wasn't even a fight.
Yeah, it started out so well, right? You see a couple of Infestors going down, you're like, okay, and then it just all crumbles from there. Trap starts to rebuild up on Void Rays as we've got the Ultras attacking the top right once more.
I love the little things of always bringing Overseer here. It's just a must, otherwise you make it way too easy for Trap. Just warp in a couple of Dark Templars, but you'll be surprised how difficult it is to always remind yourself to send an Overseer with your hit squads when you just want to deal some damage. But Serral definitely on top of that. I am a bit surprised that he's been a bit careless with his spellcasters a few times. In all honesty, I kind of feel that Trap has played better over the last few minutes, but none of that is going to determine who's going to win this game.
Yes, there's still just the looming factor of one big fight decides everything right now, at least has the potential to try and deny a hatch up here, but this is a hatch that Serral doesn't need to worry about anymore, which should mean he can finally get the bottom left up a little bit more easily, because he can focus his army down there a bit more.
Won't change things. I do often feel after we have this as a first game, the second game, one of them is going to be very aggressive.
Yes.
It's either going to be Serral who walks Queens and Roaches to the other side of the map with a lot of Zerglings, or it's going to be Trap who opens up with, you know, maybe a Stargate then into a Mirror Adepts, because I feel like most of the time they're not in the mood to do this 2 or 3 times in a row as these armies once more get dangerously close to each other. It's definitely worth mentioning that Serral only has 48 drones left, which means we're currently looking at 152 Zerg army supply. And it's just a very beautiful composition. 23 Corruptors, 8 Broodlords, 4 Ultras, 5 Infestors, 5 Vipers. It's hard not to like it. It's an army that is difficult to control, but hey, if anyone can do it, Wardy, it has to be so.
Yeah, I would say Serral is definitely the best candidate to have this kind of army, and to make something of it is Archon getting chased down so low. Just gets away, not even to some batteries. Army through the middle, as we do see the Broodlord's going to focus on the top right. So Trap going to really dive through here. We'll have recalls out, I'd imagine.
We're gonna drop some spells. We're gonna see a fungal. I feel like all the voids are so clumped up. There you go. There's the fungal. There's the parasitic bomb.
Resets the fungal as well, so keeps them all stacked up for a long time. The first disruptor flung through, and here we go. Everything breaking out right now is the army trying to chase down the Broodlords. The Ultras aren't really getting involved as we recall a few of the voids, but now everything else has to run away on its own, which just means it's easy pickings. The Corruptors are going to come through. Honestly, the High Templar took forever to storm as well, and obviously one storm wasn't going to change anything. Trap just gets wiped out in a moment of decision making that just didn't really add up at all.
I felt that Trap kind of rushed an engagement there where I don't think he should have been rushing it at all. It would be a lot better for Trap and the two armies really look at each other.
Yeah.
And he can spellcast and then Serral spellcast. But now it's kind of like he was almost chasing, which obviously means all the Void Rays clump up. And Serral actually didn't even take the first opportunity to land a good fungal. But the second one obviously was amazing. And at that point, the Void Rays, they can't do anything anymore. You basically are forced to split your Void Rays up. Otherwise, Parasitic Bomb just deals way too much damage. But the moment you're trying to split up your Void Rays, none of them are fighting, and the rest of your army is just losing the fight against the Zerg army.
And now we're going to play Mass Stalker in an attempt to just completely turn this game around from the air army to the ground army. It's something I just don't really see Serral having too much issues with. He can obviously, as he loses a couple of supply here and there, replace his supply with better things against these Stalkers. I mean, the Infestor Fungal there is brilliant. Obviously, locks the Stalkers in place. A few more Lings production, that was good. Broodlords, though, caught off guard, and the Stalkers blink through, able to take a couple down. Not bad at all for Trap. He needed something. He gets a little bit. He still needs a lot more, though.
I actually think that we can just make Zerglings eventually here too, right? So let's not forget, he's got Adrenal Glands, he's got +3 melee, +3 carapace. Zerglings are phenomenal. If you land a fungal on these Stalkers and then Zerglings get on top of the Stalkers, they melt.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say, there was like a few Lings on the way up. I was like, yeah, I like that, but there was only 8 so far. Now he's rebuilding Infest, which is okay too. Just Archon Immortal on the ground, full-on ground army coming in here as we see these Stalkers, again, trying to make themselves known about. Problem is, of course, you're kind of downgrading your army overall as Trap to play a game where now Serral is setting up onto those extra bases he hasn't had until now, and Serral still is the one with the massive bank.
I like the idea of maybe trying to play a little bit like a Terran though, even though this fungal does hurt a lot. But at this point, we're basically forcing Serral to be at 2 locations at once, forcing him to take multiple fights, and maybe that allows Trap to somewhere warp in some extra units and get on top of the Broodlords, because in a straight-up fight, he already looked at it. Well, that wasn't even a fight. We lost 60-70 supply. Serral barely lost anything. So why not try to make this game a little chaotic, a little dirty, a little messy, and see if you can eventually get lucky, because Serral is either overreacting or underreacting somewhere.
Yeah, but these Stalkers are going to try and chase some Ultras out of it. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the way that Trap's playing it. He is going to remax at least, but of course, work to be done if he's going to work through that bank of Serral. We'll see if he can. There's a couple of Zealots are chasing into Broods. And meanwhile, these Stalkers are still dancing with Ultras down here. This is the moment, though, where Trap should do well, because obviously Serral wasn't prepared for the ground army. But now as time passes by, you see Lings on the way up, etc. We're getting to the army that should just be able to deal with this, no?
Yeah, I mean, Serral's obviously in a very good spot, and he has been in a good spot for a long time. Because for the longest time, Trap lost like 1,000 or 2,000 resources more. After that previous battle and everything that unfolded afterwards, Trap has now lost 16,000 resources more, which really goes to show that Serral's in the driver's seat. He's not doing a whole lot. Serral's like, well, I don't really need to fight over the top side of the map anymore. That's not where the leftover resources are. All the resources are in the bottom. A couple of Dark Templars get stuck here. 1 or 2 of them did make it out, but here are these Zerglings. Here's the Fungo and the Lynx. I mean, that's such a gnarly combination for Stalkers to deal with.
Yeah, the Infestor was just burrowed beneath them, waiting for the opportunity for a while, as you are going to see Infestors looking to force the fight here. A lot of feedbacks will go down, but look how many units get caught. These Archons are in trouble as the Broodlords will get to catch up, and now Trap says, well, I'm going to have to come and engage back into this. So he is going to start taking the fight.
Looks a lot better than the previous fight, to be honest. And one Parasitic Bomb is dealing a lot of damage on the right side, but Trap still feeling like there is something to be gained here. That was actually really not all that bad. We have not killed too many Infestors and Vipers, but we definitely drained a lot of energy. And Trap was able to pick off a few units. Serral's making more and more Lings. I don't hate that when you're sitting on 8,000 minerals in the bank. And these are obviously the feistiest Lings one can imagine.
No, that's Yeah, I mean, Trap's just running out of money. He doesn't have much gas left at all. He's got to kind of do it with this army, as we are going to see Serral taking a little bit of a clumped up fight in the middle.
There's so many Corruptors, though. Actually, if we can just get the Broodlords, and with that forward blink, a couple of these Broodlords are in trouble. Serral's army, besides the Brutes, is really not that terrifying. I guess we are going to have a lot of Lings on the way eventually, but look at the amount of Corruptors that have nothing to do at this point.
Trap actually took a supply lead there for a little bit. Serral hasn't decided what he's going to rebuild just yet.
He has no 5 larva. Oh my god.
Okay, just started at 40 Lings. He's now going to morph all new Broodlords out of the Corruptors that were standing. So Broods and Lings on the way up, and then obviously just waiting on Lava so he can spend all the rest of this money as we are. I mean, that's where the Broodlords are. Trap is going for the throat. He is going straight through the center into the natural. The Brood on the right side, at least going to get blinked up, but now the Lings are here, and surely that's going to just shut this down.
Yep. That's also kind of just an awkward blink, right? Where not all your Stalkers make it. The rest of the armies is not good enough. More Broodlords will show up on the left. That actually got exciting for a split second, where it felt like Trap almost was never, ever going to win this game. But he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and kill the Broodlords. And then all you have is a couple of Spellcasters and a buttload of Corruptors. It looked promising, but Serral did a good job in just making sure he would morph his additional Brutes in a safe space. And this base in the bottom left is just going to pay for it one more time, Waddy. We may not win the game, but we'll definitely take out that hatchery just one more time.
If bases had death counters, that one would probably be broken by now. The amount of times it's died this game, it has been non-stop. As, Trap once more for good luck, but this army shouldn't really get away from here. The Stalkers are going to blink and leave everything else behind. The Archons and the Zealots will be chased down and melted. Then, of course, there is just not really anything left for Trap. Decent effort after that horrible fight in the center. What was 5+ minutes ago now, but the reality is you just don't recover from a fight like that because Serral has so long to eventually set up the army that he wants to play against your adjustment.
And Serral's army just got better and better as well, right? Serral is still going to lose a couple of Infestors in the top side, but it doesn't really matter as he's still maxed out. Trap only had 45 supplies, forced to tap out. Serral takes the 1-0 lead here in the upper bracket match of Group D. DreamHack Masters Season 4 Finals. Slow start to this game, both players just kind of making a gentleman's agreement of a no-rush 20. We'll see you in the center. Well, when we finally did, those fights just went a lot better for Serral.
Yeah, Serral really did just... It's one fight in particular, right? Because there was a fair few fights where like a couple of spellcasters went down and stuff, but as you said, those aren't the fights that are going to decide this game. What's going to decide this game is when Trap decides to pull the trigger, and it was just completely disastrous, and he lost so much, and we never saw a carrier gain from that point. Obviously, that was the one getaway he was able to make these DTs. Like, they're like, at least they got one infested, but I feel like that was not quite the play.
Let's take a look at that big fight we had. I'm sure that we're going to take a look at it. This was actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
These Immortals were value. They killed like 2 Ultras. And then the Void ratio of get out of here. Leave my boys alone. That's kind of cool. This was painful. This actually happened a couple of times. It could have been a little bit worse. A couple of them barely missed the edge. But this is basically the game-deciding fight. And just look at the Voids. The Voids are only running. They're splitting. They're soaking up so much damage. It really just didn't go very well.
Yeah, you want to put yourself in a dangerous position as the Protoss, so the Zerg has to fight into you, and then the recall, which leaves everything else behind. Yeah, not pretty at all, and that's where Trap really did lose control of Lightshade to give Serral his 1-0 lead.
And it's looking at that fight again, it's like almost painful, right? Where you're like, alright, first they take a lot of damage from a fungal, then they took a lot of damage from a parasitic bomb, and then eventually you're like, alright, are we gonna fight? And they kind of fly in, they're like, no, we're not gonna do this because we're too low on HP, and then you try to recall, you lose a few more, and like you said, and you leave the rest behind as well. I wouldn't mind to see Trap switch gears here in game 2, just do something a little more aggressive. Is it possible for Protoss to beat Zerg in the late game? Absolutely. But actually kind of like what Neeb was doing, where at one point he's like, I don't believe in carriers.
Yeah.
I just believe in cannons, batteries, Tempest, and Void Rays, and that really, and a lot of High Templars with Storm. That seemed like absolute hell to play against.
Yeah, super camping it out. I wouldn't have even minded what Trap did here if he just found a better fight to slowly transition into the ground army, because then Serral has to spend some money at least rebuilding initially. Well, let's see what happens as we dive on into game number 2. It is, of course, in the bottom left-hand side of the map. Down a game, not 1-1. It is going to be Trap.
Jan is like, he fought with honor. In the top right side of Juggernaut, we're looking at the main base of the Finnish Phenom, of course, still representing ENCE after all these years. It is Serral. Serral wins this. Serral wins.
Serral interview, yeah?
I'm gonna get my recorder ready. Hoping for some good one-liners.
I feel like it's been a while since we had a new one-liner, you know?
Whenever he streams, he always has a couple of great ones. The other day, when he went live, I was like, Serral, make sure you give me some good material. I'll do my best.
Yeah, it would be nice to hear from Serral, especially after he wasn't here in the season finals last time around, right? So it would be nice to kind of check in with him. And, you know, typically he does very well in season finals as well, right? You know, every time he didn't win Europe last year, he did bounce back in the season finals and win some of those.
He won 2 out of 3 last year, correct?
Yeah, and he was in the finals of the other one, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be.
Yeah. He was just good in the season finals, because initially that's why he kept meeting Trap and beating Trap a couple times over and so on. So yeah.
Stats once too in the finals, or?
Oh yeah, maybe he met Stats one time. It was a lot of ZVP finals.
Yeah. Even when Raynor won his season finals, he also played Trap, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. That's Korean Protoss, huh?
Yeah, Trap was super good actually in the season finals last year, and then this season in the first one. Summer 2021, he just bombed out in the group stage. We're like, what, Trap? No, so far, I want to say there's nothing to worry about, because I think he looked all right today. But this is still a very feisty group. This best of 3 absolutely does matter. Of course, if you win your group, you guarantee yourself $3,000 for making top 8 in this tournament. But it's more that if you look at the lower bracket in Group D, Zaun and Has, those are 2 pretty scary Protosses. And even if the first series were somewhat one-sided, we know that those 2 absolutely have what it takes to cause an upset.
No, absolutely. It's a Twilight Council going down right off the start. So, I gotta say, I think we gotta like that a little bit after the last game didn't go Trap's way. I love to see him switching it up.
Yeah. Maybe be a little more aggressive. Maybe with a couple of adepts with resonating glaives, or maybe glaives into Dark Templars.
It's definitely going to be something aggressive, because he still has all 3 workers on gas, which is a little bit more gas than you need just to start glaives. So, something a little different for sure here out of Trap. Could we even maybe see the Dark Shrine?
No, I think so. Maybe both. Maybe we'll see adepts.
Glaives into Shrine?
Yeah.
And it's been a while since that's been a thing, but it's not unheard of. In fact, I even think it made the appearance in GSL the other day.
A long time ago, we often went for adepts into double Stargate. Those were my glory days. I stuck with that build for the next 7 years. Boy.
Such is regular on the Roddy stream. Well, just going to be seeing our glaives continuing up, and this Overlord going to be denied for the moment as the Stalker does push that away up the left-hand side. And we're just going to have 3 gates added on, still on the lookout for anything additional. You can see how much gas Trap has stacked up, and it does maybe start to feel like double Stargate behind this, right? Because then what else are you going to spend all that gas on all of a sudden?
They're really cool. I haven't seen it in so long. Then I want to see a Dark Shrine too, so we can go full Roddy. You laugh, but it's really good, because now like the Zerg can make a lot of roaches that are obviously good against the adepts, and then roaches and links can be good against phoenixes if we do get to see that. Now, I don't know if we're actually going to go there. It's just very nice to have a Dark Shrine, you know, you snipe the Overseers, we'll go full Brood War, or ZDT. Well, we're getting a little carried away. Let's see what Trap actually does. I mean, he is indeed sitting on a lot of gas, buddy. You're not making this up. Like, what are we gonna do, my friend? There is a Robo.
A Robo? Okay. I mean, he did go up to 4 gates as well, so he's got 4 gates of production. No Prism to work with initially. This Overlord's like, huh, what is going on right now? Let's go and try and figure it out. Not really sure. Still so much gas in the bank.
Serral might be a little bit confused too. He's getting multiple spore crawlers. We know that there is absolutely no need for those spores, but it's kind of just in case. At this point, we are going to defend with nothing but links, which can work, but can also go terribly wrong. If you take one bad fight against the adepts when they do find themselves in a sweet corner somewhere, I don't think that Trap really wants to throw away these adepts. He's going to let the Shade finish up, though. Let's see how well the links do. The Queens are within striking distance, and that is very, very important. Just getting a couple of extra hits off. Let's see if Trap decides to leave 1 or 2 adepts behind in the main. He doesn't. Gets everything back to the low ground.
You like the fight overall? I feel like with the Queens already being there, it was a little bit... I don't know if I liked it that much. I mean, now your adept count is low, and now what else are you going to do?
What we can't forget, though, is that Trap is doing this off 3 bases. Like, if it was on 2 bases, it'd be like, whoa, this is bad.
He's not built probes, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's up 2 workers.
Yeah, I mean, not wrong. We could be up 5, 6, 7 workers.
Well, we are queuing up a couple of Immortals behind this, so maybe this is just the first wave, and the second wave is going to be a lot more feisty with a couple of Immortals, the War Prism, maybe an Observer. We do have extra gateways going down, Wardy.
Yeah, definitely feels like he wants to play Serral for the fool a little bit. We'll see if Serral can deal with it.
You know what I'd love to see right now? I would love to see Trap just grab 8 probes from his main and send them towards his third base. And if Serral then then Serral gets his Scout, he's like, oh my goodness, you've got a fully saturated third.
Yeah.
Then Serral builds a lot of drones and then potentially Trap win. But if Serral scouts that Nexus now, he's gonna be like, oh, okay. Well, it's pretty obvious what's happening here, and he's got a Ling nearby. Like, that's why it would be so cool. Like someone like Bly. Like, Bly may not be as good as these guys, but I feel Bly is really good at selling things and indeed tricking people. Well, I feel like this would be a great play for Trap, and it's not really happening.
When do you think is go time? Second Immortal and we just go across the map?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the gates have been finishing up. Do we have an Observer? I would kind of like an Obs with this as well. Maybe not that important. It's technically a good moment because Serral has been building a lot of drones. Serral has a Spire, but it's only halfway done. Yeah, we gotta go right now.
Yep, go now. It's going to be your best chance. A couple of Adepts going to get picked off at the start of this. The Immortal, other Adepts showing up, and now Serral going to have to start getting his defenses ready because this attack is arriving, and Trap needs to make this work. Yep,
we do have 4 Roaches morphing into Ravagers immediately. The Ravagers are going to be very, very important here. You want to make sure you don't lose your War Prism. You've only got 1. Prism needs to be saved. That is a funny little shade.
Yeah, shading back initially, and now we're going to cancel it as we are just going to sit on top of this army and fight. The Lings are going to grab one Immortal at the back. It gets lifted and saved, dodges the Bile. Prism does need to find a mode where it can sit back and warp in though, but the Spore Crawler is going to make it go really far back, and that might take away micro potential on the Immortals.
Yep, I love that movement there by Serral as well, trying to get in range with that Immortal, forcing Trap to pick it up very early, which means Trap's is losing a lot of DPS. The moment these Immortals are not fighting, the rest of the army really just isn't all that good, and Serral is going to absolutely slaughter this attack. It looked dicey, it looked like there was a lot of Protoss. My goodness, is Serral good in buying time for himself? And you blink twice and you're like, well, it's actually a lot of Zerg instead of a lot of Protoss.
Yeah, no, he's really good at these, defending these sort of attacks. It just feels like he is never really underprepared.
It's pretty cool that he cancelled the Spire. That was like legitimately 65-70% done, but Serral realizing how serious of a threat this attack was, cancels the Spire, gets those extra Ravages out ASAP, gets the extra Roaches out, the Lings, the Queens all in one position, and the moment he defends, he's like, the Spire was actually a good idea.
Yeah.
I just couldn't really use the resources immediately, but I'm definitely still going to go into the Spire. Trap knows that he's got his work cut out for himself, so he's gonna try to make some magic happen with a Prism to Immortals, but it's a very, very rough spot for Trap to be in at this point.
Yeah, no, it's a horrible position. I mean, he's gonna have to try and find a way to defend this, as Serral's already coming across the map, and he's defending it with, at this point you're basically talking about no tech, right? Okay, a couple of Immortals and stuff, but compared to what you usually have, charges and done, etc. And of course, Serral is happy as well to not necessarily end the game right now, because he's got the Spire on the way, and the preparation against the Spire, well, that is approximately 2 Stalkers at the moment.
I do like how Serral has played so far today. I don't want to say immediately, Serral's gonna win it, because it's been a long time since Serral's won a tournament.
Yeah.
In the old days it was almost like, is there someone that can stop Serral? And that almost feels like, can Serral win? We know that he's got the skills, but can he actually be as clutch as he once upon a time was, where he just, basically whenever you put him in the finals, he pretty much always won. I think what I'm looking at so far today, Wadi, I think Serral is not just a contender, he may very well be the favorite.
Well, this Prism is not going to be able to find any damage as Serral is setting up with the mutas. Now, double Stargate did come down here, so Trap, he is going to have those as options for himself to build Phoenix out of, and he will go straight into it, so good for Trap to be prepared against that, of course. He didn't actually see the Spire, he just expected. That's a really good read.
It is a really good read, but it's still going to take a little while before the Phoenix count is going to be high enough. And let's not forget that dropping double Stargate and building Phoenixes of 58 probes, it's kind of painful. Because that obviously means, like, sure, you can do this, but then the rest of your army is really not getting better anytime soon.
And Serral's obviously just massing Ling Bane, Roach Ravager behind this as well, right? So these meters are going to force so many Phoenix that it's almost going to be bad.
Yep, this is something that Serral actually used to do a long time ago. He did it against Neve in a WSG game that I remember very well, where it's like 7-8 mutas, you force out the big reaction, and then you just remax immediately on Ling, Ravager, Baneling. A lot of Banelings, you roll forward, and then those Phoenixes feel very, very silly in the air. Look at the supply, look at the production.
Yeah, and he's got so many Banes against an army on the ground, which is like Zealots and Adepts with a couple of Mortals. None of this is really looking all that good. Extra Banelings are morphing in right here, and Trap is in a whole world of trouble as Serral is going to come rolling and walking on down to the bottom side. Trap sees this attack coming, but I don't even know what you change up and prepare for this right now.
What can you do? I mean, you can only hope for the absolute biggest Purification Novas of all time. The problem is he doesn't even have any Disruptors out yet. There is the first Disruptor. We do have an Overcharge Battery, so you may want to kill the Overcharge Battery just in case. One Nova does get a decent connection on a lot of these Banelings, but there is just way too much Zerg. The Immortals are surrounded by Lings, Roaches, Ravages, Banelings, and Trap knows that it's time to tap out. Serral will come out on top in Group D. The DreamHack Masters fall and make it into the playoffs as one of the